You know what the hardest truth is? The man you love might be showing you every single sign that he doesn't actually love you back, and you're still making excuses for him. Right now, as you're listening to this, there's a real chance you're in a relationship where the person you've chosen is already quietly planning his exit, not through words, but through patterns, through distance, through inconsistency. And the most dangerous part? You've already felt it. You just didn't want to name it. Here's what nobody tells you. There's a certain type of man who can make you feel chosen in one moment and completely forgotten in the next. He knows how to show up just enough to keep you attached, but never enough to make you feel secure. He's warm when it benefits him, cold when it doesn't, present when he's in the mood, absent when you need clarity. And every time you try to understand where you stand, he flips it in a way that makes you question your own judgment instead of his behavior. This is the man who doesn't love you the way you deserve to be loved. Not because love is confusing, but because his commitment already has limits. You just haven't been told where they are. You're trying to build certainty in a situation he's designed to stay uncertain. So before we go further, I want you to do something simple but honest. If even 3 of these patterns feel familiar in your relationship, type the word truth in the comments. Not for validation, not for attention, but for clarity. Because the first step out of confusion is admitting you're in it. Now let's talk about who this man is and why he does what he does. The first thing you need to understand is that there are men who operate from a place of emptiness. They're not monsters, they're not evil, they're just incomplete. They haven't done the work to know themselves, so they move through relationships like they're shopping. They try something on, see how it feels, and if it gets uncomfortable or boring or challenging, they look for the next thing. This is the man who cheats. Not always with another woman. Sometimes he cheats by checking out emotionally. Sometimes he cheats by keeping his options open. Sometimes he cheats by telling you he loves you while he's already planning how to leave. And here's what makes it even more painful. He might actually believe he loves you when he says it. He might genuinely feel something in that moment. But his love is conditional. It's based on what you do for him, how you make him feel, whether you're easy to be with. The second you require something from him, the second you ask him to show up, the second you need more than surface level attention, his love starts to shrink. This is the pattern. You meet him and he's all in. He texts constantly. He wants to see you all the time. He talks about the future. He makes you feel like you're the most important person in his world. And you believe it because his words are consistent and his actions seem to match. For the first few months, maybe even the first year, you feel seen. You feel chosen. You feel loved. Then something shifts. It's subtle at first. He's a little slower to respond to your messages. He's got more things going on with his friends. He's tired more often. He's less interested in hearing about your day. When you bring it up, he tells you you're being too clingy, too needy, too demanding, and because you love him, you pull back. You make yourself smaller. You stop asking for things. You become easier to be with by asking for less. This is where the trap gets set. The moment you adjust yourself to fit into his life more comfortably, he gets what he wanted all along. A woman who won't require anything from him. A woman who's grateful for scraps. A woman who'll interpret his bare minimum as love because she's been conditioned to expect so little. Now, let me tell you about the specific behaviors that prove he doesn't love you, even if he's using the word love. The first sign is that he's unreliable in the small things. Everyone talks about big betrayals. Everyone talks about infidelity. But what about the man who says he'll call you and doesn't? What about the man who cancels plans last minute? What about the man who's always late and when you mention it bothers you, he makes it about your need for control instead of his lack of respect for your time? A man who loves you respects your time. He respects your feelings. He might not be perfect, but he tries. He shows up literally and figuratively. If your man is constantly unreliable in the small things, that's not a character flaw you need to accept. That's a signal that he doesn't value you enough to get it right. The second sign is that he doesn't really know you. I mean, truly know you. He doesn't remember the things you've told him. He doesn't ask follow-up questions about your goals or your dreams or your fears. When you talk, he's thinking about something else. When you're upset, he doesn't actually try to understand why. He just wants the uncomfortable moment to be over. This kind of man loves the idea of you, but he doesn't love you. He loves how you make him feel. He loves having a woman by his side. But the actual person you are, with your complexity and your depth and your contradictions, he's not interested. The third sign is that he makes everything about himself. When you share something difficult, he immediately relates it back to his own experience. When you need support, he turns it into a conversation about his stress. When you're celebrating something, he finds a way to make it about his accomplishment or his feelings. This is the man who cannot handle you having your own inner world that doesn't revolve around him. He needs constant validation, he needs to be the center, and if he can't be, he'll make you feel guilty for taking attention away from him. The fourth sign is that he isolates you, either directly or indirectly. Maybe he doesn't want you spending time with your friends. Maybe he makes subtle comments about your family. Maybe he just becomes withdrawn and cold whenever you make plans that don't include him. So you start canceling. You start making him your priority because at least when you're focused on him, you feel some connection. But this is a trap. A man who loves you wants you to have a life outside of him. He's secure enough to support your friendships and your family and your own identity. If your man is trying to be your whole world, that's not love. That's control. The fifth sign is that he doesn't follow through on promises. Not just the big promises like marriage or commitment, but the everyday promises. He said he'd help you with something and then he forgot. He said he'd be more attentive and nothing changed. He said he'd work on his anger or his distance or his emotional unavailability, and he just expects time to fix it without him actually doing anything. Words without action are just noise. And if your man is full of words but empty of action, he's showing you exactly how much you matter to him. The sixth sign is that he gets defensive when you bring up your needs. A healthy person can hear criticism or requests or concerns without turning it into a fight. But this man, he immediately positions himself as the victim. He tells you you're attacking him. He tells you you're never satisfied. He tells you you're too much. And somehow, the conversation that started with you expressing a need ends with you comforting him and apologizing for hurting his feelings. This is a pattern. This is manipulation. And it works because you love him and you don't want to hurt him, so you stop asking for anything. The seventh sign is that he keeps his options open. I'm not just talking about cheating in the traditional sense, although that's certainly possible. I'm talking about the way he interacts with other women. He's friendly in a way that's almost flirty. He maintains connections with exes. He keeps his relationship status ambiguous on social media. He doesn't introduce you to important people in his life. He doesn't post pictures of you. He doesn't claim you publicly. And when you ask about it, he says it's because he's private, because he doesn't like social media, because those things don't matter. But they do matter. They matter because they're a way of saying, I'm not sure about you enough to tell the world. I'm not sure about us enough to make it permanent. The eighth sign is that he's emotionally unavailable. He doesn't share his feelings. He doesn't have deep conversations. He doesn't let you see the vulnerable parts of him. And while this might seem like he's just private or introverted, it's actually a sign that he doesn't trust you with his real self. A man who loves you wants you to know him. He wants to be seen and accepted and loved for who he really is. If your man keeps you at a distance emotionally, it's because he's protecting himself. He's keeping an escape route open. He doesn't need you to know his real self because you're not permanent in his mind. The ninth sign is that he doesn't celebrate you. Your accomplishments, your wins, your growth, they don't light him up. Instead, he's neutral or even subtly competitive. If you do well at something, he needs to do it better or faster or bigger. If you're happy about something, he finds a way to diminish it. He's not happy for you because on some level, your success makes him feel small. This is a deeply insecure man. And insecure men cannot love generously because they're too busy protecting their own ego. The 10th sign is that the relationship is always on his terms. When you need something, he decides whether it's reasonable. When you want to have a serious conversation, he decides if now is a good time. When you want physical affection, he decides if he's in the mood. You're always adjusting. You're always waiting. You're always hoping that maybe this time he'll choose you. But he's already chosen. He's chosen himself every single time. Now, here's what I want you to really understand about this situation. It's not your fault. You didn't cause this. You can't fix this. This is who he is. And I know that's painful to hear because you probably thought love was enough. You probably thought that if you just loved him hard enough, if you just tried hard enough, if you just became the right version of yourself, he'd finally see you and choose you and be there for you. But that's not how this works. You cannot love someone into wholeness. You cannot accept someone into being able to accept you. You cannot support someone into being able to support you. He has to want to do that work. He has to recognize that there's something inside him that needs healing. And most men like this never get there. They just move from woman to woman, leaving the same damage in their wake. So what do you do with this information? The first thing is you stop making excuses. You stop telling yourself that maybe he'll change if you just love him harder. You stop believing that one more conversation, one more chance, one more sacrifice is finally going to be the thing that makes him become the man you've been waiting for. You stop accepting explanations that don't make sense. You stop overlooking behavior that would be unacceptable if anyone else did it. You stop rearranging yourself to fit into a space that was never built for you. Because here's the truth. If someone truly values you, they don't need endless reminders to treat you with respect. They don't need constant opportunities to prove that they care. Real love doesn't require you to become smaller so someone else can stay comfortable. Real love doesn't demand that you ignore your own needs just to keep the relationship alive. The second thing is you look at yourself. Not to blame yourself, not to shame yourself, not to sit there and replay every mistake you've ever made. You look at yourself so you can understand your patterns. Because awareness is what breaks cycles. Usually, a woman who stays with a man like this has her own wounds that haven't fully healed. Maybe you grew up without consistent love, so unpredictability feels familiar and therefore feels like love. Maybe you have abandonment fears, so the small scraps of affection he gives you feel bigger than they actually are. Maybe you've spent your life earning approval, so you're trying to earn his too. Maybe you have low self-esteem, and you've slowly convinced yourself that this is the best you can do. Maybe you have savior tendencies, so every red flag looks like a problem you can solve instead of a warning you should pay attention to. Whatever it is, you need to understand it. Because if you don't address it, you'll find yourself in the same relationship wearing a different face, different name, different city, different story, but the same pain, the same confusion, the same feeling of never quite being enough. The third thing is you get support, whether that's therapy, a trusted friend, a mentor, or a community of people who understand what you're going through. You need people who can reflect reality back to you. Because when you're inside a situation like this for long enough, your perspective gets distorted. You start questioning things that should be obvious. You start doubting your instincts. You start making excuses for behavior that would shock you if it happened to someone you cared about. You gaslight yourself. You rationalize. You minimize. You tell yourself it's not that bad. You tell yourself every relationship has problems. You tell yourself you're expecting too much, and that's why outside support matters. Sometimes you need someone else's clarity until you can find your own again. Sometimes you need someone to remind you that what you're experiencing isn't normal, isn't healthy, and isn't something you have to accept. The fourth thing is you make a plan to leave. And I say this knowing it's not easy. I say this knowing that you probably still love him. I say this knowing that there are memories, hopes, and dreams attached to the relationship. I say this knowing that you might have financial ties, children, a home together, or years invested in building a life that you don't want to walk away from. But staying is not the answer, because staying doesn't solve the problem. Staying only teaches you how to tolerate it. Staying says that you're willing to accept less than you deserve. Staying says that his comfort matters more than your well-being. Staying says that your needs can continue to wait while he figures himself out. Staying says that your happiness is negotiable. And the truth is, it isn't. You matter. Your feelings matter. Your peace matters. Your future matters. You deserve someone who doesn't have to be convinced to show up for you. You deserve someone who doesn't make commitment feel like a negotiation. You deserve someone who chooses you again and again, not because they're afraid to lose you, but because they genuinely value having you in their life. Now let me tell you something about the man who does love you. He's not perfect. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to have flaws and blind spots and moments where he gets things wrong. But there's a difference between making mistakes and refusing to care about the impact of those mistakes. A man who loves you will try. When you tell him something matters to you, he'll pay attention. When you're hurting, he'll want to understand why. When conflict happens, he'll look for solutions instead of escape routes. When you need space, he'll respect it. When you need closeness, he'll move toward you instead of away from you. He'll share his life with you, not just the convenient parts. He'll include you in his world. He'll talk about future plans with you in them. He'll speak about you with pride and affection when you're not around. He'll be reliable. He'll follow through. He'll show up when he says he will. And perhaps most importantly, he won't make you spend every day wondering where you stand. His love won't feel like a puzzle you have to solve. It won't feel like a mystery you have to decode. It won't leave you constantly searching for hidden meanings behind mixed signals. You'll know, not because he says all the right words, but because his actions consistently match them. That's the standard. That's what normal looks like. And anything less than that, anything where you're constantly questioning, constantly adjusting, constantly explaining away behavior that hurts you, isn't love. That's obligation. That's comfort. That's convenience. But it's not love. So take what you've heard today and apply it to your own situation. Be honest with yourself. Have the courage to answer the questions you've been avoiding. Are you with a man who truly loves you? Or are you with a man who's using love as a placeholder while he figures out his next move? And whichever answer you get, I want you to know something. You're going to be okay. It might not feel okay right now. It might feel heartbreaking. It might feel overwhelming. It might feel like the ground beneath your feet is disappearing. But you're going to be okay. You're going to rebuild. You're going to rediscover who you are outside of this relationship. You're going to reconnect with the parts of yourself that you've neglected for far too long. And one day, you're going to look back and realize that walking away wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of a better one. Eventually, you're going to find someone who doesn't make you question your worth, someone who doesn't make you earn basic respect, someone who doesn't leave you wondering if you're enough, because you always were enough. This is the conversation we need to be having more of. This is the reality that nobody wants to talk about, but everyone needs to hear. If this resonated with you, if you recognized your relationship in these patterns, then you need to subscribe to Relationship X. We are building a community of people who are done with mediocre love and ready for the real thing. We are not close to 1,000 subscribers yet, and we need you. Subscribe now so you don't miss another episode.